All right. So I guess we now move on to the Skinner anomalies.
Take it away, Nazeris.
All right.
Show me what you got, bud.
So it's actually gonna be pretty short. Most of it is extra reading that you could do, but it's more of a definition on two major pieces of tech that's gonna be coming in over the next year or two, much like most of the things in Star Citizen. But the title is "What are dynamic events, and why aren't they dynamic?" So the whole pitch for a dynamic event, or these events that we have, is that the game can simulate in a way to where eventually it ticks over and this event is spawned. So a Ninetales lockdown would happen when the piracy or the Ninetales activity is at a critical mass to where they get bold enough to lock down an entire station, or to where the Jumptown event would spawn if there's so many of a certain commodity being bought and sold from a certain outpost. And once that reaches critical mass, it will start up the Jumptown event on whatever resource that is, from whatever outpost that is. Currently, however, because it's still early days for the entire system, these dynamic events end up being scheduled events. So we have currently, I've listed the AIE, so the aerospace, or IAE, Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, the Invictus Launch Week, Xenothreat, Ninetales Lockdown, Jumptown, and Siege of Orison, which are all dynamic events. Eventually, they will switch over to being actually dynamic, but for now, they are scheduled events that CIG has firsthand. They will go into their editor. They will set up when these things happen, and what are all the triggers and how many things spawn in for when they're the PVE event. So they'll dial in how many commodity that Jumptown has, or how many pirates will be interested, how many Xenothreat you go up against, or how much the shots will uh, modify by when there's a lockdown. In the eventuality, when the system is more complete, there will be dynamic quanta or quantum triggers. That's the backend system that simulates the entire universe, and that is what's going to end up dictating what these events actually do. The reason it is necessary that these events become dynamic is that eventually they will stop being broadcast on the website and on Twitter. Because with systems that we have on the map, so we have about 100 systems on the map, there is a feasibility that there could be a dynamic event for each system. And these will be going off whenever they dynamically activate. So CIG themselves will not be able to keep track of all of the different events that are spawning at different times. Obviously, they'll have the data that they can look at, but they won't know in advance when all these things are going to kick off. So whether there's a Vandal attack on the Vandal front, or there's a Suli moving in to sell their wares, or the Jumptown events are spurred on, whether there's a crime spree, Xenothreat has popped out of Pyro again. All these different events will just be done because the game is simulating the economy, the back end, and different movements in the political geography. So eventually, and I think the technology to watch on the roadmap, so nice tie-in for the last one, is the virtual AI service, which is it's a bit lower down on how it affects the dynamic events, but it is one that does have good merit because it is the go-between a NPC you see and the quantum simulation. So it's not too terribly tied to the dynamic event, but it is one to watch. The dynamic mission system. So this one, Tony Zerovic actually did specifically mention in his talk about dynamic events, and the information that is in this bit that I have is all linked up in the show notes. And just hitting my mic, it's fine. Mostly coming from Star System, Quantum, Quasar, and Virtual AI. And I actually have one of the videos timestamp, or that one timestamp, so you guys can go straight to what is a dynamic event as far as their tools are concerned. But dynamic missions is going to be, instead of, again, authoring every single little thing about a mission, it's going to be pieces of missions with dynamic, let's call it metadata inside of it. So some NPCs need some box moved to somewhere from somewhere, instead of this person needs that box moved from there to there, which is what we have now. The dynamic mission system will be able to do all of these not known things in the future. The next one being the quantum simulation, the entire back end of the simulation of Star Citizen itself. This is how the game will actually go into the not known from the dev's perspective. They'll set up how things are procedurally moved around and simulated, but they won't dictate this NPC is moving this many goods from here to here. That place will just have a dynamic need from whatever reason it has needs and exports, and some NPCs will start moving. And that will get more and more complex as time goes on. The next tile to look at is, funnily enough, dynamic events. And this is the core work on how to get these events all built up. So we're around halfway through now that we have these scripted events where CIG themselves put in every single detail, activate it on their whim. But eventually, when this tile gets more and more done, we will have these dynamic events, and as I said, they'll be able to just say, these are the criteria that make it spawn, and then just leave it alone until the game ends up fulfilling those activation rules. And then the game will be able to fill in the details of the event. And I had actually an extra tab, but those are the tiles that have at least a little to do with the dynamic event system. So what is the eventuality, or how long we're going to wait? Well, that is actually the one thing we don't know. The dynamic event system is currently scheduled all the way until the end of March. However, as we talked about in the last segment, it's scheduled to all the way to the end of the schedule, so we actually don't know. And then
what? No.
So the mission feature team is the one that runs all the way to March of next year. However, the systemic systems and tools team gets their work done in November, and the USPU gameplay feature team gets their work done also in November. So there's a chance that we may get a dynamic version sometime before the end of the year, but I would imagine that would be in 4.0. So I imagine whatever dynamic system, it would be a 4.0 system, just based on the timing that I see on the roadmap, which means we're probably not going to get it till next anyway. So imagine somewhere near Q1, Q2 next year. But that will be when we actually have dynamic events, and that will not only have it more of a unknown, even though I'm sure a lot of people will not like being able to miss the events. They are, at their core, world events that just happen. But we will almost definitely get a ping in-game when something like this goes off. And we will also... my thought kind of rolled away. But anyway... it'll be more dynamic, and we'll be able to actually see the game actually following the rules that they set up, which will mean we can then influence when they show up. So that'll be much interesting. So that is all I got on
the
dynamic.
part that I think is the most interesting is these events are going to be triggered dynamically. We won't know what the criteria to trigger them are, and as players, being a small portion of the universe, we can only do so much to influence those criteria, and we can only do so much to track them, and in order to prepare. And some of them won't even be triggered; they will just by in-game criteria. The devs can literally just flip a switch, and it'll go on. If they want, maybe the Vanduul will rate a system if there's a certain amount of traffic or something like that, or the traffic to security or UE Navy population ratio, tips too far in the not enough security for the not enough population. Maybe that it'll be dynamic like that, or they might just trigger it and let it happen and not tell us, and all of a sudden you'll get an alert on your
Moby
Glass or something like that, or on your HUD, one of your HUD screens, in your ship, saying that the Vanduul are attacking. You might be in a system far away from where the event is happening, and then you'll read about it in the little news clips, that come across Spectrum in game. The Vanduul attacked, the Oberon system again on this date, and you're like, wait a minute, that was 3 days ago. And so you might hear, you might, if you're not paying attention, in game or something like that, or out of game, you might not hear about the event happening. And these things are going to happen, and you're not going to be in the right place at the right time. Players will try to be in the right place at the right time, but you won't ever, the likelihood of you being in the right place at the right time every time, or even a large percentage of the time, is going to be low. And so sometimes I'm sure we'll see players trying to trigger them. And we'll see players racing across star systems in order to participate in the event, because these things won't just be it's done, and 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, it's over. A lot of these things will be ongoing for good periods. But I think that's just absolutely fascinating that the things can trigger without players even being involved at all. It can just be because of NPCs doing NPC things, and the stars aligning with probability volumes in order that will trigger events. And it doesn't have to always be combat. There will be events related to every mechanic that CIG is developing.
Yeah, specifically like the Vanduul one. If Vanduul attack, and then the people who want to do the fighting of the Vanduul go in, there's going to be a mission afterwards to go and get the resources to that place for the recovery of that place. So that engages all the haulers. And if there's a war going on, you're going to need repair. You're going to need medical people. But then there's also dynamic race events. The Murray Cup will be a thing.
What triggers will it be for scientific events? New
discoveries.
Yeah, new discoveries or something like that. A comet is passing through this system, and there's all sorts of things that they can do with it, and tie these things that they've been working on with the various teams together into an event, and then decide whether they want triggers or not, or whether they just want it to, devs in the background playing God. And it's just a really cool system that is far and above different and better than MMOs have done before.
The only reason they're not dynamic now is just because the quantum simulation's not done yet. All the tools there are ready for it. They're just waiting on the implementation of the quantum.
Yeah, they've been building tools and building events so we can test them. So that way, once the quantum simulation and a few other things can get tied in, that way, we're testing it in a small way, just like why didn't they put a bunch of reclaimer derelicts or a bunch of rivers? Well, they add one, and we test it, we find the bugs, and then make sure things are working appropriately, and then they add things to scale.
I mean, with the river specifically, it was, wow, that's production ready. Just put it in.
Yeah,
they weren't even testing for that.
Yeah, and once it doesn't take them long to make a river, they can make a river, just by clicking a few buttons, and it literally pathfinds its way across the planet. It doesn't take them a long time to create an event, because all the ingredients are there. That you just have gameplay designers who are, we can, make events and everything. We just don't have the system to dynamically trigger them all.
Yeah,
and the game servers can't handle it yet.
Yeah,
but, the more and more of the stars or planets are starting to align in order for these things to happen. If people are like, "Oh, sweet, server meshing is coming in," but it's not going to change player counts. Well, it will change player counts, slowly but surely. But there are other more important things that this takes into context, and it's all of the services like Quantum, like the event service, moving off of the game servers and onto back-end systems, so that way they can function the way that they're ultimately designing them, like the dynamic event system.
Yep.
So it is not a pie in the sky dream now. The work is well underway, and we are watching it with bated breath. But it's, the fact that we are already playing the events and they're already talking about introducing more events.
I think we have. Do we have one or two unannounced ones yet for the year?
I'd have to go back to the progress tracker, but I know that they're.
They said something about that.
That's the other thing, is they do show on the progress tracker unannounced content and unannounced events. I think it is.
Somebody should really make a bit on how to read the roadmap.
Weird. And I'm hoping that Jake will soon reveal what item on the progress tracker is the Siege of Orison.
Ah, yes. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that is a thing that is unannounced on the progress tracker right now, and so
I think I know which one it's gonna be, though.
I bet you we could pick it out. I bet you, with everything that we just talked about, you and I could probably nail it.
I think it's the one that was done a year or two ago, and has basically every single team working on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one it is.
I know there's like two, but the one you're talking about is larger scale than the other. But it would be the one that has more location work.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking of, it has location, vehicle, facial animation. It's got almost every single team working on it, and that would make sense if you're doing an air-to-ground FPS battle.
Yeah. Before we launch into my scanner anomaly, we're going to take a quick bio break. I'm going to put myself on mute. Give me 2 seconds so I can use the restroom that is 10 feet away.
All right. So here on the stream, we'll actually go through a couple of housekeeping things. The stream is running terribly behind. Black, thank you so much for following. I've noticed that you're responding to things that we've done 10 or 2 minutes ago. Sorry about that. My internet here should be fixed by next week. So hopefully we'll get a much better version of that, and also clear up my drive to record properly and not, get a corrupted video in the middle of a stream. We also had Tree gift a sub to Andy1054. Thank you so much. I'll on that back by the end. Yeah. Any questions while we're trying to get back? Well, I guess can't really ask questions because it's it's fine. Yeah, I'm looking at the stream now, and it's quite far behind. Yeah, it's quite far behind. Yeah, we're running at currently okay kilobits currently, but it goes up and down.